Hey there! Yesterday I was at the Tilburg pen show, and when you're at a pen show you have to buy a pen. So I bought a classic, a pen that I needed for quite a while, and here we go. So, Parker Vacumatic. And this pen has quite some interesting stuff going for it. It's a classic, it's a vintage pen, and it's got some really cool things going. You got them in a bunch of finishes, and I really like this one. I got this from Francis Goossens, who is the designer of the Konit bulk filler, I believe, and he was selling off some doubles in his collection. Okay, let's start, cover the parts of the pen, then I'll tell you what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and then we'll do a writing sample. Here you got this end thing at the cap, usually referred to as a diamond. Then we have the clip. The clip has this, it has Parker on there, has the arrow, and it has this nice blue little diamond. And then you have the beautiful material of this pen. I think this is called the golden brown, that I really like. We have a center band, which has some nice detail on it. Not sure how well you can see that, but there is some detail on there. It doesn't say Vacumatic or anything, but it has this sort of almost meandering like stripes. You have the barrel. I like the way this barrel looks. You see it's somewhat translucent, which is quite cool. And then near the end you have a blind cap, which you can unscrew. It is a Vacumatic. That's the thing you push. Then a accordion shaped bladder inside, and sac inside is compressed, and when that's decompressed it draws up ink. Very nice, simple system that works very well. As you can see, the blind cap is really nice and flush with the barrel, so you hardly see it's there, which is very, very cool. Then we have the section. The section is black and really small, so if you have large hands, then you see that my fingers don't really like this, but it's still doable. The threads are not really sharp. And then you have the nib. This is where things get interesting, because this nib, I was chatting to Eric from FB Geeks yesterday, and he said, "Is it really what you say it is?" And I said, "Yes, it is." He said, "Well, that's impossible. Parker didn't make that." And I said, "Well, I hardly made it." And we had a good look at this, and of course, it's not a Parker nib. Ooh, so exciting. It is 14K. It has a half sunburst. I have no idea who made this, but it's a nice vintage nib. 585, it says 1 qual, so first quality I'm assuming, and it's flexy, very, very flexy. And that's what's interesting, because a lot of these Vacumatics have nibs that are quite hard. So it's interesting that it's flexy, but it's not an original Vacumatic nib. Is that a problem? Yes, it's a problem for collectors. For me, I'm a user. I like to use my pens, and this does just what it's supposed to do. Flex. It has an inscription on the barrel, but not from a person. It just says Geo S. Parker, so George S. Parker, I'm assuming. Parker Vacumatic, made in USA, and then it says 4, and has 3 dots surrounding it, which Eric identified as being from the first quarter of 1944, I believe. A pen from 1944, how about that? A war pen. It only makes you wonder where this pen has been and what it has seen. Okay, so what do I like about the pen? What do I not like about the pen? Well, clearly, if you buy a pen like this, be very careful you get the proper nib. Sometimes you see pens like this with a dual fold nib on there, and this clearly is not a Parker nib. Again, for a collector that's going to be an issue, but if you're a user, you want a nice flex nib, which is what I was looking for. I found it. I love the finish. This is really beautiful material, nice, translucent. If I hold it up to the light, I'm not sure how well you can see this because I don't really have a good light source here. Well, actually, I do. Okay, so we got a flashlight. I'm not sure if you can see this if I hold this behind it. But you see how translucent, let me see, that's probably the way to do it. You see how nicely translucent that is. So that's very, very cool. Beautiful, very warm brown. I absolutely love that. What I don't like, yeah, that nib. Okay, it's not a Parker nib. I don't really care. For a true collector, I know this is a mortal sin, but for me, it's fine. The nib is a bit It gives quite some feedback, it's very fine, but I completely overlook that because it has excessive flex, which makes it a joy to use. You're going to see that in the writing sample. So that's what I like about it. What I don't like about it, I think we have to take a couple of measurements. Weight, it's a light pen, I'm sure. Yes, just over, well, let's say it's about 20 grams. That's it. Measurements. Capped, I have 123 millimeters, and uncapped, I get 120. Section diameter at the point just below where it flares, which where you would hold it, I have about 8 millimeters, and down where it meets the barrel I have a good 9, almost 10 millimeters. As to the size, it's not a big pen. You can post it. I'm a little bit hesitant to do that because the material is so nice I don't want to scratch it, but you can if you want to. And that's all. I think you need to see a writing sample. That's what we're going to do next. I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Okay, let's have a look at this Parker Vacumatic. The nib, I would say, is a good fine, if not extra fine. And the ink is Waterman, Florida. Blue, now known as Serenity. I like to use that in vintage pens because it's so well behaved. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. If I do some really fast writing, you see there's not really any skipping. The nib really seems to perform quite well, and that is impressive. Good old-fashioned nice feed that really keeps up well. Now, the nib is very fine, and that definitely gives it feedback as you write. But, to be honest, I wouldn't really call it scratchy. It's just a type of feedback that you feel as you write. Now, you know that I'm not a huge fan of fine nibs, and you know that I'm definitely not a fan of feedback. So why would I hang on to this? Well, the answer is that this is a pen that offers you a really impressive bit of line variation. That goes from a hairline to at least double broad, if not triple broad. And as we've already discussed in the talk part of the review, something's fishy with this nib. This is not a Parker nib. I don't know what it is, but it's not Parker. Question is, does it matter? Yes, it matters. If you are a collector of Parker Vacumatics, then you will frown upon this because the nib is pretty much the most important part of the pen, right? Because that's what you write with. For me, it doesn't really matter because I end up with a pen that can do this, and I find that extremely pleasant. So for me, this is absolutely fine. Now, wetness, it's an extra fine nib, so with no pressure, it's all pretty dry, with quite some pressure. Freud was right. It gets extremely wet, and something that's extremely wet can give you a lot of pleasure. Then we have finally some reverse writing. It's very dry and it's very scratchy. I'm not going to do that with this pen. Actually, I never do it, but some people do. I would not recommend it with this one. And there you have it. So, I hope that this was useful. I hope that the Vacumatic fans are not going to slaughter me for showing people a Vacumatic that has a non-Vacumatic nib. And I hope you enjoyed the writing sample. And I'll see you later. Bye bye!